So I did my project on mental health and the Christian faith with a focus on schizophrenia because I have a personal experience with that diagnosis. When his family heard what was happening, they tried taking him away. He's out of his mind, they said. Ezekiel 3:21. The entirety of my adult life has been devoted to my son. I was a teenage mother with almost no support. When I was 16 years old, I became involved with an older man, which led me to adult responsibilities that were beyond my capabilities. There were always signs that my son had something going on with him that was out of the realm of normal childhood development. Little did I know that this would lead to a diagnosis that was life changing for me as a parent, a diagnosis that led me into the unknown, uncharted territory that left me feeling hopeless. This has been a journey that has involved searching for and begging for help within a system that is broken and unwilling to help individuals with severe mental health issues until something bad happens. And this is our story. My son's pediatrician sent a referral to a child psychologist that would later lead us to a diagnosis. After months spent on a wait list, the doctor finally saw us. We would undergo months of testing that led to a debilitating diagnosis, schizophrenia. My son was 13 years old, making this diagnosis highly unusual. We were advised to look into residential placement as symptoms would become increasingly difficult to manage as time went on. Despite this advisement, we were unable to find a residential facility that would take our son. We dealt with hallucinations, bizarre thinking, there is no other word to describe it, and delusions that made absolutely no sense to us. Schizophrenia is a mental health disorder characterized by disruptions in thought process, perceptions, emotional responsiveness, and social interactions. Although the cause of schizophrenia varies among individuals, schizophrenia is typically persistent and can be both severe and disabling. Symptoms can manifest in different ways, but typically they look like psychotic symptoms such as hallucinations, delusions, and thought disorder, or unusual ways of thinking, as well as reduced expression of emotions, reduced motivation to accomplish goals, difficulty in social relationships, motor impairment, and cognitive impairment. Childhood schizophrenia is rare. Most doctors are unwilling to diagnose children with schizophrenia because they are still growing and developing, but there are occasions where this diagnosis is appropriate. Schizophrenia symptoms don't typically show up until the mid to late 20s. The challenges of young adulthood can lead to a psychotic break. Schizophrenia is considered early onset if an individual is under the age of 18. Symptoms can affect thinking, behavior, and emotions. Common symptoms include hallucinations, delusions, and disorganized thinking. There, Son of Man, you will be tied with ropes so you cannot go out among the people, and I will make your tongue stick to the roof of your mouth so that you will be speechless and unable to rebuke them, for they are rebels. Ezekiel 3:25 through 26. Rejecting God's word can lead to silence as a form of punishment. This verse gives a depiction of what schizophrenia could be like when it comes to looking for help. This absolutely applies to our experience as a family. We have been met with nothing but resistance from providers. Even scarier yet has been the resistance from our son to accept help when it has been offered. We have sought help for our 15-year-old son since he was 5 years old. We have been met with nothing but resistance from the mental health system. When we finally did receive an initial consultation when he was in the first grade, we were told that he had ADHD. As our son grew older, it was evident that this was not what we were dealing with. We have worked with several different providers. The turnover rate in this field seems to be quite high. Each one set out with what seemed to be their own agenda when it came to diagnosing Eli and what treatment was appropriate. There was a time when things got so bad that we took our son for inpatient treatment nearly 2 hours away from our home. We were hopeful that this treatment would lead to real change, but when he returned home, things seemed to be worse than they had ever been. It has been a fight to be taken seriously, even dealing with doctors that didn't believe the diagnosis and decided to take him off all of his medications to see if he would be able to function without them. This was quite literally the biggest mistake that could have ever been made by a medical professional. This led to a psychotic break that none of us were prepared for. A stereotype is a generalization about a group of people in which certain traits are assigned to virtually all members of the group, regardless of actual variation among the members. I think that this is especially important in our case for several different reasons. Doctors were reluctant to diagnose a child with schizophrenia, partly due to the stereotype that followed such a diagnosis. This is, in fact, a diagnosis that follows an individual throughout their lives. It's also important to point out that my son did not fit the stereotype of schizophrenia. He was a 13-year-old child, not an adult, who was experiencing things that children of that age don't typically experience. Attachment has been one area in my relationship with my son that has always been an issue. Attachment is one specific aspect of the relationship between a child and a parent, with its purpose being to make a child safe, secure, and protected. Parent-child interaction is a vital piece of the puzzle for a child's development. Even as an infant, I struggled with this. Eli was a very colicky baby who seemed to receive no comfort from the typical things that a baby would benefit from. Nothing seemed to console him. As a toddler, he was very volatile and threw what others would consider fits when asked to do or participate in activities that would be normal for a child of that age, especially in public. As a teenage mother, this was especially difficult because a situation that was already stressful felt like a mountain that was impossible to climb. As Eli grew and began school, we faced many hardships. He was unable to make friends, began stealing, and was incapable of participating in a loving relationship with his family. Fast forward to life with Eli as a teenager. We are now facing involvement with the justice system as he has done things that have led us there. Running away and refusing to go to school have both been contributing factors. He has also begun to refuse to go to medical and counseling appointments, as well as taking his prescribed medications. Avoidant attachment style is characterized by difficulty developing intimate relationships because previous attempts to be intimate have been rebuffed. What we have ran into recently with our son is that he wants nothing to do with our family. He states that too much has happened, that our relationship is irreconcilable. He has told us that we are not his family and that he has no desire to have a relationship with us. Receiving any love or affection has been totally out of the question. Defense mechanisms are unconscious strategies that people use to protect themselves against threats. Right along with defense mechanisms comes denial, which distorts what has actually happened by saying that it did not occur. I would say that Eli has a lot of defense mechanisms. The most obvious one is to shut us out and shut us down. He blames us for everything that is wrong in his life and refuses to cooperate in any form of treatment. Eli and I have been through quite a few traumatic situations in our lives, which has led to what I believe is general adaptation syndrome. This is when return to rest is never complete. Even after the stressor has stopped and the general adaptation syndrome is terminated, this is a demonstration of the link between psychological reactions and physical illness. Much of my son's early life was spent in turmoil. Because I was a teenage mother and involved with an older man, we were often placed in situations that were beyond stressful and often unsafe. Eli witnessed abusive situations perpetrated by his biological father, which he has not forgotten about to this day. It seems that he has never been able to return to a state of rest or let these situations fall to the background. These traumatic experiences have remained in the forefront of his mind, and he has never forgotten. I believe that it is because of these situations that he experiences a misattribution of arousal, a process where people make mistaken inferences about what is causing them to feel the way that they do. While early life was riddled with traumatic experiences, I eventually met my now husband, who has been in Eli's life since he was in kindergarten. He often takes his frustrations out on my husband, despite the fact that he is not the one who committed the acts that have led to Eli's distortion of what a father figure looks like. Intrinsic versus extrinsic motivation is what motivates people to do the things that they do. They may be intrinsically interested in doing something, or they could believe that they stand to gain something by doing it. I have definitely seen this with my experience with schizophrenia. For example, during my son's inpatient stay, I seen that during his visits he was willing to say whatever he needed to say to leave treatment. I have also seen this during my interactions with the school. Again, he has said what he needed to say to make it through meetings and make it seem like he is willing to do whatever needed to be done to fix the issues at school. But when it came time to actually do them, it wasn't going to happen. We recently had a meeting with the school to discuss his refusals to go to school, during which he stated that he would start going. A week following the meeting, he still refused to go to school. He is willing to tell people that what they need to hear in order to avoid immediate consequences, but when it is time to follow through with those promises, he is unwilling to commit. Don't be afraid, for I am with you. Don't be discouraged, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you. I will hold you up with my victorious right hand. Strength does not come from within, it comes from God. It is a message of hope that God will guide you when you don't know where to go. I think that this verse is helpful in both my son's life as well as mine. I cling to this hope because I often don't know what to do next in these situations. I also think that this applies to my son's life because despite what seems like defiance, he doesn't know what to do either. Attentional deployment is how people direct their attention to influence their emotions. This is useful when a situation can't be changed. It involves moving attention away from the emotionally distressing aspects of a situation, similar to distancing strategy or working to forget or not think about a stressful situation. I have observed what distancing can look like. When things are tough, it is easier to remove oneself from the situation entirely. Refusing to accept responsibility for actions is one example. When someone places the blame on another person or situation instead of accepting responsibility for what they have done, it is especially difficult to deal with because while we can see what is happening, the person doing this is not able to see what they are doing. Behaviorism is the explanation of human behavior, including dysfunction, based on principles of learning and adaptation derived from experimental psychology. It's difficult to understand why people act the way that they do. I think that it's important to remember that there is always a reason behind an action. Don't copy the behavior and customs of this world, but let God transform you into a new person by changing the way that you think. This relates to the clients that we serve when we assist them with steering away from behaviors that others are doing that may seem normal to them but are actually causing them harm. The behavioral approach focuses on the observable and measurable aspects of human behavior. This model is also known as the cognitive behavioral mode. Human behavior lays at the forefront of psychology. We are always assessing behavior and deciding whether it is detrimental or positive in a client's life. As a parent with a child with a severe mental illness, it is easy to determine what is detrimental. However, I don't always understand why my son does the things that he does. When I think of measurable behavior, I think of things that withstand opinion. For example, refusing to go to school is measurable. The school keeps track of unexcused absences, which leads to consequences that not only my son deals with, but also myself as the legal guardian. Cognitive development theory is based on the development of human intelligence. The central concept of the theory is that children actively construct their own cognition or knowledge as a result of their independent explorations. It focuses on the act of learning new tasks through a multitude of practices. When we first started this journey with Eli, part of his testing included an IQ test. He tested above average. It is interesting to me that a child with such a high IQ is also able to suffer such severe symptoms. I think that this just goes to show that intelligence has nothing to do with mental health and that one area is not indicative of the other. We should not base our opinions on intelligence. On the same note, cognitive behavioral therapy is a form of psychological treatment that has been demonstrated to be effective for a range of problems, including depression, anxiety disorders, alcohol and drug problems, marital problems, eating disorders, and severe mental illness. Numerous research studies suggest that CBT leads to significant improvement in the functioning and quality of life. While cognition and intelligence may be a concern, there is evidence to support that there is an effective treatment. The most common treatment for schizophrenia is CBT, which normalizes rationale and cognitive remediation. And dear brothers and sisters, one final thing. Fix your thoughts on what is true, honorable, and right, and pure, and lovely, and admirable. Think about things that are excellent and worthy of praise. Keep putting into practice all you have learned and received from me, everything you heard from me and saw me doing. Then God of peace will be with you. This shows us that there is power in positive thinking and self-talk. Cognitive restructuring is designed to help attain a better emotional response by changing habitual appraisal habits so that they can become less biased. There are two assumptions. The first assumption is that irrational thoughts and defective cognitions can lead to self-deflating behaviors. The second assumption is that thoughts and statements can be changed through alterations of personal views and cognitions. Cognitive remediation is a behavioral intervention targeting problems with cognition, the mental ability to process and understand information and ideas, through the application of learning principles with the ultimate goal of improving day-to-day community functioning. I think that Eli's counselor works on both of these principles when he meets with him. While I don't go into all of his sessions, I have been in several of them. One of Eli's recent sessions focused on what he wants to do in the future and how school is an important part of that plan, which would require him to go to school on a regular basis. Better to be patient than powerful, better to have self-control than to conquer a city. This verse reminds us to practice self-control. We need to focus on one thing at a time instead of focusing on too big of a challenge at one time. Challenging irrational beliefs. When some cognitive therapists challenge clients' strongly held beliefs when the beliefs are responsible for clients' emotional suffering. This makes clients aware of their irrational nature and teaches them to dispute this disturbing thoughts when they arise. For my son, one of his beliefs is that his parents are out to get him. While I see the value in this technique, I don't think we've quite reached a point where he is able to recognize what is irrational and what is rational. Don't worry about anything. Instead, pray about everything. Tell God what you need and thank Him for all He has done. Then you will experience God's peace, which exceeds anything we can understand. His peace will guard your hearts and minds as you live in Christ Jesus. This passage tells us to manage our anxieties through prayer, but also to be thankful for what we have. Strengths-based counseling is a resilience-based, positive psychology and wellness-oriented. Counselors help clients understand strengths and sources of resilience that can be tapped when the going gets tough. Aside from my experience with my child, I also work with adults with disabilities. While I am not a counselor, we do operate off of a strengths-based model. Focusing on what an individual does right goes a long way with trying to improve other less than desirable behaviors. Transference is a cognitive distortion that refers to transference as a client's carryover feelings from past relationships into a new one, the client-helper relationship. Some believe that transference is caused by unfinished business from the past. Transference can be seen as a set of cognitive distortions or unresolved conflicts and unfulfilling needs. These distortions are learned patterns of thinking, not unlike irrational ideas. Transference is something I worry about, both professionally and for my son. Fortunately, I have never seen my son place undue blame on a counselor. I have seen him become upset with a psychiatrist during medication appointments for feeling like he was on my side during visits. Effective ways to seek forgiveness include expressing regret, accepting responsibility, making restitution, genuinely repenting, and requesting forgiveness. This is one area that I think falls on me as a parent. My son holds me responsible for a lot of his issues. Some of those I agree with because I was a teenage parent and made a lot of mistakes. However, there is only so much that I can apologize for, and he doesn't seem to be receptive to apologies. On the flip side, he is not able to take responsibility for his actions and apologize when it is warranted. This is something that we're still working on. Unfortunately, most treatments that we have tried with my son have not worked yet. He does regularly go to counseling and also sees a psychiatrist. I have been told that some medications may be beneficial to him, but because he is a minor, they are not available to him yet. He is adamant that once he is an adult, he will no longer go to appointments and will not take his medications. It is my hope that someday he realizes that he needs help and will be receptive to treatment. My reason for pursuing a psychology degree is deeply personal. A psychologist was the first person who was able to give our family an answer, a diagnosis, and I want to be that person for someone else someday. The Lord is my shepherd. I have all that I need. He lets me rest in green meadows. He leads me beside peaceful streams. He renews my strength. He guides me along right paths, bringing honor to his name. Even when I walk through the darkest valley, I will not be afraid, for you are close beside me. Your rod and your staff protect and comfort me. You prepare a feast for me in the presence of my enemies. You honor me by anointing my head with oil. My cup overflows with blessings. Surely your goodness and unfailing love will pursue me all of the days of my life, and I will live in the house of the Lord forever. Psalm 23, 1-6. This verse reminds me that even when we walk through dark times and we feel alone, the Lord is always with us, even in our most lonely and scary moments. Despite the pitfalls with the mental health system in the United States, there is hope. We are the hope. As Christians, we need to be able to shine our light and show our love to the most unloved. The Lord is close to the brokenhearted. He rescues those whose spirits are crushed. Psalm 34:18. This is a reminder to us that even in our times of despair, such as mental illness, Jesus is present and we are not walking through the darkness alone.